The story begins on the cobblestone streets of Paris, where beauty and struggle walk side by side. Café terraces buzz with laughter, the Eiffel Tower looms above, and the Seine flows endlessly, carrying the whispers of millions. Yet among the endless lights of the city, there was one man living in the shadows: Luc Moreau. Luc wasn't anyone important in the world's eyes. He was a single father, raising his little daughter, Amélie, after his wife passed away from an illness. He worked 2 jobs, delivering bread at dawn and playing his old violin in the evenings at the corner of Rue de Rivoli. With his patched coat and tired eyes, he looked like another struggling Parisian, invisible to the wealthy tourists who passed by. But to Amélie, he was everything: the man who tied her shoelaces, cooked her soup, and tucked her into bed with lullabies played on his violin. One evening, fate put Luc on a collision course with power. The Grand Ritz Hotel in Paris was hosting a lavish gala for the world's elite. Business tycoons, celebrities, and politicians lined its golden halls. Among them was Victor Armand, a billionaire CEO of a global luxury brand. Tall, arrogant, wrapped in silk and pride, Victor was famous for his sharp tongue and his disdain for ordinary people. As the guests arrived, Luc stood just outside the glittering hotel, playing his violin for spare coins. The melody was soft, haunting, filled with both sorrow and hope. Amélie sat beside him on a small stool, clapping her tiny hands in rhythm. Passers-by slowed, enchanted by the sound. But when Victor Armand stepped out of his limousine, the music stopped. He sneered. "Look at this spectacle," Victor said loudly, ensuring everyone heard. "A beggar teaching his daughter that life is about handouts and coins. Paris deserves better than this nonsense." The crowd chuckled nervously. Some looked away, embarrassed. Amélie's eyes filled with tears, and Luc's face tightened. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, he lifted his violin again. "Sir," he replied softly but firmly, "I may not own empires. But I own something you will never have." Victor scoffed. "And what's that?" Luc's bow touched the strings, and the melody that rose was unlike anything the crowd had ever heard. It was raw, powerful, and full of love. The music carried the weight of sleepless nights, the laughter of a child, and the pain of loss turned into beauty. It wrapped around everyone's hearts, silencing whispers, silencing even Victor himself. When Luc finished, tears streamed down Amélie's cheeks, but she smiled and clapped with joy. The crowd erupted in applause. Someone recorded it on their phone. That video spread across Paris overnight, then across the world. By morning, headlines read, "Billionaire mocked a street musician but his reply made the world cry." Millions watched the video. Messages poured in. Luc's melody was called the heart of Paris. People said it reminded them of their own struggles, their families, their hidden battles. Within days, the French Ministry of Culture invited him to perform at a national event. Orchestra directors begged him to join their ensembles. His story became a symbol of dignity, love, and resilience. Victor Armand, meanwhile, faced a storm of criticism. His empire, built on luxury, now looked hollow compared to the richness of a single father's love expressed through music. Reporters hounded him. His board of directors feared the damage to their image. But Luc didn't care about fame or revenge. He cared about Amélie. With the sudden spotlight, he was offered money, contracts, interviews. Yet, he chose carefully. He accepted an opportunity to teach music to children from poor families because he believed no child should grow up without beauty in their lives. At his first public performance, In front of thousands at the Louvre courtyard, Luc stood tall in his worn coat. Amélie sat in the front row, her eyes shining. Before playing, he spoke into the microphone, "I am not a beggar. I am a father. I am a man who has lost, but also a man who has loved deeply. If my music touches you, let it remind you that dignity does not come from wealth, it comes from the heart." The crowd erupted in cheers, their applause echoing against the ancient stones of Paris. That night, history was made not by a billionaire in his tower, but by a single dad with a violin. Victor Armand eventually issued a public apology. But the world had already moved on. In history books, his name faded into a footnote of arrogance. Luc's reply, however, lived on as a cultural turning point. Schools taught his story, musicians studied his composition, and statues were later raised in his honor as the violinist of Paris. And through it all, Luc remained humble. He still tucked Amélie into bed, still made her soup, and still whispered, "You are my greatest symphony."